Admiral Hyun-woo Park stood at the window of his command ship, looking out at the stars. Earth hung like a blue marble in the distance, peaceful and quiet. But peace was about to end, he knew it. Everyone knew it. The message had arrived 3 days ago from the Galactic Empire. It was not a request. It was a demand. The Empire wanted Earth's new quantum technology, and they wanted it now. They also wanted something else. They wanted to put their own soldiers on Earth to keep the peace. Hyun-woo touched the communication device on his wrist. "Dr. Lee, are you there?" "Yes, Admiral," came the voice of Dr. So-min Lee. She was Earth's best scientist and the person who had created the quantum technology that made the Empire so nervous. "I'm in my lab. Still working. They want our technology, So-min. All of it." There was silence for a moment. Then Dr. Lee spoke again. "I know. I've been expecting this day for 2 years. Ever since we first tested the quantum drive. The quantum drive was special. It let human ships travel faster than anything the Empire had ever seen. It also did other things the Empire didn't know about yet. Dr. Lee had made sure of that." On the planet below, Ambassador Ji-Hai Kim was getting ready for the most important meeting of her life. She had been Earth's voice in the Galactic Council for 10 years. She had watched the Empire treat humans like children. She had seen them laugh when humans asked for equal treatment. She had listened to them call humans the young ones and the dangerous pets. Today all of that would change. Ji-Hai put on her formal clothes and checked her reflection in the mirror. She was a small woman, but she had a strong voice. Today, she would need it to be stronger than ever. The Galactic Council met in a huge building that floated in space between stars. Representatives from hundreds of different alien species came here to make decisions that affected the entire galaxy. The building was old, older than human civilization. The Empire had built it when they first started taking over other worlds. As Ji-Hai walked into the main hall, she could feel eyes watching her. The other representatives whispered to each other. Some pointed at her. Everyone knew why she was here. The hall was enormous. Thousands of seats rose up in circles, with each species having their own section. The Empire's representatives sat at the center, in the biggest and most expensive chairs. They were tall gray creatures with 4 arms and cold black eyes. Their leader was someone the humans called the Grand Speaker. The Grand Speaker stood up. His voice was deep and echoed through the hall. "Human representative, you have been called here to receive the Empire's final decision about your species." Ji-Hai walked to the center of the hall. She felt very small surrounded by all these alien beings, but she kept her back straight and her head up. "The Empire has decided," the Grand Speaker continued, "that humans have become too dangerous to be left alone. Your new technology threatens the peace of the galaxy. Your species expands too quickly and fights too often. Therefore, the Empire will take control of your technology and place protectors on your worlds." Murmurs ran through the hall. Some species seemed happy with this decision. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked surprised. Ji-Hai stepped forward. "And what if we refuse?" The Grand Speaker's black eyes seemed to shine with amusement. "Refuse? Young human, you have been in space for only 200 years. The Empire has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. You have 12 ships. We have 12,000. What could you possibly do to stop us?" More laughter echoed through the hall. Many of the alien representatives seemed to find this very funny. Ji-Hai waited for the laughter to stop. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button, and suddenly her voice could be heard clearly throughout the entire hall. "I bring you a message from the Terran Senate, from the Terran Defense Force, and from every human colony in space," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "The message is simple. We refuse." The laughter stopped. "Furthermore," Ji-Hai continued, "by unanimous vote of the Terran Senate, we hereby declare all Imperial forces banned from entering Terran space. Any Imperial ship that crosses into our territory will be considered an enemy. Any attempt to land Imperial forces on our worlds will be considered an act of war." The hall was completely silent now. Even the Grand Speaker seemed stunned. Then the laughter started again, louder than before. The Grand Speaker held up one of his 4 hands for silence. "Little human," he said, "you amuse us. You speak of war as if you could fight the Empire. You speak of banning our ships as if you could stop them. Tell me, what will you do when our fleets arrive at your precious Earth? What will you do when 1,000 ships appear in your sky?" Ji-Hai smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "We'll be ready," she said. Back on his command ship, Admiral Park was also smiling. He had been listening to everything through a communication link. Around him, his officers worked at their stations, preparing for what would come next. Captain Dongmin Choi stepped up beside the Admiral. He was the leader of Earth's Special Forces, the soldiers who did the most dangerous jobs. Admiral, our teams are in position throughout the Empire. Just give the word. Not yet, Hyunwoo said. Let them make the first move. Let them think they're still in control. On the other side of the ship, Commander Yoo-jin Song was checking her equipment. Her ship, the Soul's Pride, was one of the new stealth vessels that the Empire didn't know about. It could hide in normal space, but more importantly, it could hide in quantum space, a place where the Empire's sensors couldn't reach. Commander, one of her crew members called out. We're getting reports from the other stealth ships. Everyone is ready, Yoo-jin nodded. Good. Remember, we wait for the Admiral's signal. Not a moment before. Dr. So-min Lee sat in her laboratory deep inside Earth's moon. Around her were machines that no one else in the galaxy could understand. They hummed with power that came from quantum space itself. She had been working on these machines for 5 years, ever since she realized that the Empire would eventually try to take Earth's technology. The Empire thought they knew what the quantum drive could do. They thought it was just a fast engine. They had no idea what it really was. The quantum drive wasn't just an engine. It was a weapon. It was a shield. It was a way to change the very fabric of space and time. And Earth had hundreds of them. So-min touched a control panel and screens all around her lit up. Each screen showed a different human colony. Each colony had its own quantum drive, its own defenses, its own surprises waiting for the Empire. Let them come, she whispered to herself. Let them learn what humans can really do. In the Galactic Council Hall, the Grand Speaker was still talking. He was explaining how the Empire would help humanity by taking away their dangerous technology. He was describing how Imperial soldiers would protect human colonies. He was making it sound like the Empire was doing humans a favor. Ji-hai listened to it all. When he finished, she spoke again. Grand Speaker, you have made your intentions clear. Now I will make ours clear. Earth will not surrender its technology. Earth will not accept Imperial occupation. Earth will not bow to the Empire's demands. She paused and looked around the hall at all the alien faces watching her. And if the Empire chooses to use force against us, the Empire will learn why humans have survived on a world full of predators for millions of years. You will learn why we've conquered our own planet and reached for the stars in just a few thousand years. You will learn what happens when you threaten a species that has never learned how to surrender. The Grand Speaker's forearms crossed in front of his chest. Very well, human. The Empire has made its offer. You have refused. The consequences are on your own head. Yes, Ji-hai said quietly. They are. As she left the hall, representatives from dozens of species watched her go. Some were still laughing. Some looked worried. A few looked almost hopeful the Empire had spoken. Humanity had answered. Now the galaxy would see what happened when two very different ideas of power met among the stars. 3 weeks later, Admiral Hyunwoo Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the edge of the solar system. His ships were spread out in a defensive line, 12 vessels against what was coming. It didn't look like enough. It wasn't supposed to look like enough. Admiral, Lieutenant Taeho Kang called from his station. Long-range sensors are picking up the Imperial fleet. 50 ships, just like intelligence said. Hyunwoo nodded. Any word from Director Yoon? Yes, sir. She confirms that our people are in position throughout their fleet. They don't know we're there. Director Yoon Ji-yoon ran Earth's intelligence service. For 2 years, her agents had been getting jobs on Imperial ships, learning their systems, studying their weaknesses. The Empire never suspected that humans could be so good at hiding in plain sight. The Imperial fleet was impressive. 50 massive warships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls were dark and covered with weapons. Their shields shimmered with energy that could stop any normal attack. They moved through space like hungry predators, confident and deadly. Admiral Corvin, the Empire's fleet commander, stood in his command center and looked at the small human force ahead of him. 12 tiny ships against 50 Imperial dreadnoughts. It would be over in minutes. Open a communication channel, Corvin ordered. Hyunwoo's face appeared on the Imperial ship's main screen. He looked calm, almost relaxed. Human Admiral, Corvin said, I am here on behalf of the Galactic Empire. You will move your ships aside and allow us to proceed to Earth. If you do this, no harm will come to your crews. I'm afraid I can't do that, Hyunwoo replied. You are entering Terran space without permission. Please turn around and leave, Corvin laughed. It was a harsh sound. Look around you, human. Count my ships, count yours. Do you really think you can stop us? I think you should leave while you still can. The Imperial Admiral's laughter died. Very well. You have chosen your fate. All ships, prepare to attack. But before the Imperial ships could fire, something impossible happened. 20 human ships appeared out of nowhere, right in the middle of the Imperial fleet. They hadn't been there a second before. The Empire's sensors hadn't detected them approaching. They had simply appeared. Commander Yujin Song smiled as her ship, Soul's Pride, materialized next to the Imperial flagship. Around her, 19 other stealth ships had done the same thing. They had been hiding in quantum space waiting for this moment. All ships, she said into her communicator. You are weapons free. Show them what we've learned. The battle that followed was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The Imperial ships tried to turn their massive guns on the human vessels, but the humans were too fast, too small, and too clever. They darted between the Imperial ships like insects, but their stings were deadly. The human weapons were different too. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they fired something the Empire had never faced before: quantum disruptors. These weapons didn't try to break through the Imperial shields. They simply ignored them, reaching through space itself to strike the ships underneath. Admiral Corvin watched in horror as his flagship's main cannon simply stopped working. The human weapons weren't destroying his ship's systems. They were changing how those systems worked, making them forget how to function. Impossible, he whispered. Our shields should stop anything. On the Soul's Pride, Commander Yujin Song's crew worked with perfect coordination. They had trained for this moment for 3 years. Every person knew exactly what to do. Target their engine room, Yujin ordered. Quantum pulse, level 3. The ship's main weapon fired. It looked like a thin line of silver light. But when it hit the Imperial dreadnought, the huge ship's engines simply went dark. The vessel stopped moving and hung in space like a dead whale. All around them, the same thing was happening to other Imperial ships. The humans weren't trying to destroy the enemy fleet. They were disabling it, taking away its ability to fight without killing the crews inside. This is impossible, Admiral Corvin said again. His communications officer looked up at him with 4 frightened eyes. Sir, we're getting reports from the entire fleet. Our weapons are offline. Our engines are offline. Most of our ships can't even turn. Lieutenant Tae-ho Kang piloted his small fighter through the battle, weaving between the massive Imperial ships. His job was different from the others. While they disabled ships, he planted something special on each one. Tae-ho's fighter was the smallest ship in the human fleet, but it was also the most advanced. It could phase in and out of normal space, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. The Imperial gunners tried to shoot him, but their weapons passed right through his ship when it shifted into quantum space. He landed on the hull of an Imperial dreadnought and quickly attached a small device to its armor. The device immediately began working its way through the ship's hull, using quantum technology to pass through solid matter like it was made of air. Package delivered, Tae-ho reported, moving to the next target. Inside the Imperial flagship, the device that Tae-ho had planted appeared in the middle of the command center. Admiral Corvin and his crew stared at it in shock. It was a simple metal box about the size of a human hand. The box opened and a hologram appeared above it. The hologram showed Captain Dongmin Choi, leader of Earth's Special Forces. He was a big man with serious eyes and scars on his face from old battles. Admiral Corvin, the hologram said, my name is Captain Choi. Right now, my soldiers are aboard every ship in your fleet. We got there the same way this message got there, through quantum space. Your people never saw us coming. Corvin looked around his command center. He didn't see any humans, but that didn't mean they weren't there. We could have killed you all, the hologram continued. We could have destroyed your ships and sent pieces of them back to the Empire. But we didn't. Do you know why? The Imperial Admiral said nothing. Because, Captain Choi's image went on, we're not like the Empire. We don't kill people just to show how strong we are. But make no mistake, we are strong. Stronger than you thought possible. The hologram changed, showing images of human ships, human weapons, human soldiers, things the Empire had never seen before. This is your only warning, Captain Choi said. Leave our space. Leave our worlds alone. Tell your empire that humanity is not afraid of them. Tell them that if they come back, we won't be so gentle next time." The hologram faded, leaving Admiral Corvin staring at the empty air. Around him, his crew waited for orders. Slowly, power began returning to the Imperial ships. The humans were giving them back control of their engines and communications, but not their weapons. They could leave, but they couldn't fight. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly. "What are your orders?" Corvin stood in silence for a long moment. He had come here with 50 ships to conquer 12. Instead, his entire fleet had been defeated without a single human casualty. Worse, the humans had made it look easy. "Signal the fleet," he said finally. "We're leaving, sir." "We're leaving!" Corvin shouted. "Set course for Imperial space. Best speed." As the Imperial fleet limped away from Earth, Admiral Hyunwoo Park watched them go from his command ship. Around him, his officers were celebrating, but Hyunwoo felt no joy. This had been the easy part. The Empire would be back, and next time they would bring everything they had. "Commander Song," he said into his communicator, "bring your ships back to normal space." "Well done." "Thank you, Admiral," Yujin's voice replied. But this was just the beginning, wasn't it? "Yes," Hyunwoo said quietly. This was just the beginning. Dr. So-Min Lee watched the battle from her laboratory on Earth's moon. She had seen everything through the quantum network that connected all human ships and colonies. The technology had worked perfectly, but she knew the Empire would learn from this defeat. Next time, they would be ready for quantum weapons. Next time, they would bring more ships, better shields, different tactics. The Empire had been surprised once. They wouldn't be surprised again, but So-Min was ready for that too. The quantum drive had more secrets, more capabilities that even the Empire couldn't imagine. If they wanted a war, humanity would give them one. She touched a control panel, and her laboratory filled with the soft hum of machines that could reshape reality itself. The Empire thought they had seen Earth's best weapons. They were wrong. Director Yoon Ji-yoon sat in her office deep beneath the surface of Earth, reading reports from her agents throughout Imperial space. The news was not good. The Empire was angry. They were embarrassed. And they were gathering the largest military force in the history of the galaxy. 10,000 ships, 100 different species, weapons that could destroy entire planets. But Yoonji was not worried. Let them come with their thousands of ships. Let them bring their planet killers and their ancient weapons. The Empire was about to learn something important about humans. They were about to learn that the more dangerous the situation became, the more dangerous humans became too. In the depths of space, Admiral Corvin's damaged fleet finally reached the edge of Imperial territory. Behind them, the Sol system grew small and distant. Ahead of them waited the Empire's might and fury. Corvin knew that what had happened today would change everything. The humans had shown capabilities that shouldn't exist. They had weapons that ignored the laws of physics as the Empire understood them. The Empire's revenge came 6 months later, and it came everywhere at once. General Kyung-Soo Han stood in the command center on Earth, watching reports flood in from every human colony in space. Red dots appeared on the star map, each one representing an Imperial attack. There were dozens of them scattered across hundreds of light years. "Sir," one of his officers called out, "we're getting distress signals from New Busan, New Seoul, Terra Nova, and 15 other colonies. The Empire is hitting them all at the same time." Kyung-Soo nodded grimly. This was what they had expected. The Empire had learned from their first defeat. Instead of trying to take Earth directly, they were attacking the human colonies, hoping to cut Earth off from its people scattered among the stars. What the Empire didn't know was that humans had been preparing for this too. On the agricultural world of New Busan, Colonel Bora Shin crouched behind a rock wall and watched Imperial dropships land in the fields outside her town. The ships were huge, each one carrying 100 soldiers from different alien species. They came down like metal rain, turning the peaceful farming valley into a war zone. The Imperial commander, a tall reptilian creature called General Thask, stepped out of his ship and looked around at the human settlement. It was small, maybe 5,000 people, mostly farmers and their families. It should be easy to capture. "Humans of New Busan," his voice boomed across the valley through loudspeakers. "You are now under Imperial protection. Surrender your weapons and submit to processing. Any resistance will be met with force." Colonel Bora Shin smiled to herself. The Empire still didn't understand humans at all. She pressed a button on her communicator. All units, this is Phoenix Leader. Welcome to New Busan. Let's show our guests how we grow things here. What happened next surprised the Imperial forces. The ground under their feet began to move. The farm fields that had looked so peaceful suddenly revealed hidden doors. Weapons platforms rose up from beneath the soil like deadly flowers blooming in fast motion. The farmers that the Empire expected to find cowering in their homes were nowhere to be seen. Instead, hardened soldiers appeared from camouflaged bunkers, trenches, and underground tunnels. Every field, every barn, every house had been turned into a fortress. General Thask realized too late that New Busan wasn't a farming colony with some defenses. It was a military base disguised as a farming colony. Impossible, he hissed as human soldiers appeared on all sides of his landing zone. Intelligence said this was a civilian target. Colonel Bora Shin's voice came over the Imperial communication system. Somehow the humans had already hacked into their network. General Thask, she said calmly, welcome to New Busan. You're standing in the middle of the most productive farming region in human space. We grow many things here, wheat, corn, vegetables, but our most important crop is soldiers. The battle for New Busan lasted 3 days. The Empire had brought 10,000 troops. The humans had 5,000. But the humans knew every rock, every tree, every hiding place on their world. They had spent years preparing for this fight. The Imperial soldiers found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Human fighters would appear, attack, and then vanish into tunnels that the Empire couldn't find. Weapons would fire from positions that seemed empty. Supply convoys would be destroyed by soldiers who melted away into the landscape like ghosts. Dr. Wu Jin Lim watched the battle from his laboratory beneath New Busan's main city. He was a specialist in biological weapons, but he had refused to create anything that would kill. Instead, he had developed something else. Weapons that would disable alien soldiers without harming them permanently. Release the fog, he told his assistant. Across the battlefield, a strange mist began to rise from the ground. It looked natural, like morning fog in the valleys, but when the Imperial soldiers breathed it in, they became confused and sleepy. Their weapons felt too heavy to lift. Their thoughts became slow and unclear. Within hours, most of the Imperial ground forces were stumbling around in a daze, unable to fight effectively. The humans moved among them like shepherds, collecting weapons and guiding the confused aliens into holding areas. General Thask, wearing a breathing mask that protected him from the fog, watched his invasion fall apart. He had brought overwhelming force against a simple farming world, and somehow he was losing. Sir, one of his officers reported, our troops are unable to maintain combat effectiveness. The humans are using some kind of chemical weapon. Then call for orbital bombardment, Thask snarled. If we can't take this world, we'll destroy it. But when the Imperial ships in orbit tried to fire on New Busan, their weapons wouldn't work. Dr. Somin Lee's quantum network had reached out across space to touch their ships, disabling their planet-killer weapons just as it had disabled the fleet at Earth. The same story was playing out on human colonies throughout the galaxy. On New Sol, the Empire found that the entire city could move, buildings sliding underground while hidden weapon systems emerged to fight back. On Terra Nova, the humans had built their settlement inside an asteroid, turning the entire rock into a massive fortress that could fire in all directions at once. Admiral Hyun-woo Park coordinated the defense from Earth, but he wasn't just watching his people fight. He was learning. Every Imperial attack taught him something new about their tactics, their weapons, their weaknesses. So-min, he said to Dr. Lee through the quantum communication system, can you track their command ships? Already doing it, her voice replied. They're using a standard Imperial command structure. All orders come from 3 dreadnoughts positioned in deep space. If we could disable those ships, the entire attack would fall apart, Hyun-woo finished. Can we reach them? Not with conventional ships. But I have an idea. Dr. So-min Lee's idea was radical, even by human standards. Instead of sending ships through normal space to attack the Imperial command vessels, she would send the attacks through quantum space itself. The weapons would appear inside the enemy ships without warning, disable their systems, and vanish again before anyone could react. It's never been tried before, she admitted to Admiral Park. The power requirements are enormous, and there's a chance it could damage our own quantum network. Do it, Hyunwoo said without hesitation. The attack came at midnight, Earth time. 300 light-years away, the Imperial command ships were suddenly filled with the same silver light that had disabled their fleet at Earth. But this time, the effect was much stronger. Admiral Sektar, the Empire's supreme commander for this operation, watched in horror as every system on his flagship went dark. Emergency power failed. Life support stuttered. Even the artificial gravity stopped working, leaving everyone floating in the air. "What's happening?" he demanded, but his officers had no answers. They were all floating helplessly in the dark, their ship as dead as a rock. On the other command ships, the same thing was happening. The Empire's entire attack force suddenly found itself cut off from orders, unable to communicate with each other or with Imperial headquarters. Without central command, the Imperial forces began to retreat from human space. Local commanders, faced with resistance they hadn't expected and cut off from support, decided to withdraw rather than risk their ships and crews. General Kyung-Soo-han watched the red dots disappear from his star map one by one as Imperial forces pulled back from human colonies. In less than a week, the Empire's massive invasion had collapsed, but the real victory wasn't the military one. It was what happened next. As the Imperial forces retreated, they carried with them stories of what they had seen. Human colonies that were really fortresses, farmers who were really soldiers, technology that could reach across space to disable any ship, anywhere. More importantly, they carried stories of how the humans had fought. The Empire had expected brutality, massacre, the complete destruction of any force that dared to attack them. Instead, they found an enemy that disabled rather than destroyed, that captured rather than killed, that showed mercy even in the middle of a war. On worlds throughout the Empire, species that had been conquered long ago began to whisper to each other, if these humans could fight the Empire and win, if they could show that the Empire wasn't invincible, then maybe change was possible. Colonel Bo-Ra Shin stood in the fields of New Busan, watching the last Imperial transport ship disappear into the sky. Around her, her soldiers were helping confused alien troops into medical facilities, where Dr. Lim's people would help them recover from the effects of the fog. "Colonel," one of her sergeants asked, "what do we do with the prisoners?" Bo-Ra thought for a moment. The Empire would expect their soldiers to be tortured, enslaved, or killed. That's what the Empire would do to human prisoners. "Treat them well," she said finally. "Give them medical care, good food, and comfortable quarters. When they're ready, we'll send them home." "Ma'am, we're not fighting to become like the Empire," Bo-Ra explained. "We're fighting to show the galaxy that there's a better way to live. These soldiers will remember how we treated them. When they get home, they'll tell others. Sometimes the greatest victory is turning your enemies into your friends." Dr. So-Min Lee sat in her laboratory, watching data flow through the quantum network. The Empire's attack had failed, but she knew they would try again. The Empire's third attempt to break humanity came differently. Instead of trying to invade human colonies, they decided to cut Earth off from the galaxy completely. If they couldn't defeat the humans directly, they would isolate them until they ran out of supplies and surrendered. Fleet Admiral In-ho Baek received the intelligence report while he was inspecting the Terra Nova shipyards. The Empire was building a wall of ships around human space, blocking all trade routes and communication paths. They planned to strangle humanity slowly. "Admiral," Captain Hirano said as she joined him on the observation deck, "my scouts have confirmed it. They've got over 3,000 ships spread out in a blockade pattern. They're not trying to attack us anymore. They're just going to wait us out." In-ho nodded thoughtfully. Hiran was his best pilot, a woman who could fly her fighter through spaces that seemed impossible to navigate. Her scouting reports were always accurate. "How long do they think it will take?" he asked. "Intelligence estimates they expect us to surrender within 2 years. They think we'll run out of food and raw materials." In-ho smiled. "They still don't understand us, do they?" The Empire's plan might have worked against any other species. Most civilizations depended on trade with many different worlds to survive. Cut off their supply lines and they would quickly run out of essential resources. But humans had learned to be self-sufficient during their early expansion into space. Every human colony was designed to produce everything it needed to survive. And Dr. So-Min Lee's quantum network meant that any resource shortage on one world could be instantly supplied by another. More importantly, the Empire had made a fatal mistake. They thought the quantum network was just for communication and defense. They had no idea it could be used for transportation. "Hi, Rin," Inho said. "How would you like to take a trip behind enemy lines?" Captain Haya Rin-O had always been special, even among human pilots. She could feel the flow of quantum space in a way that others couldn't. When she flew through the quantum fold, it was like dancing with the fabric of reality itself. Her ship, the Dancing Star, was the most advanced fighter humanity had ever built. It could phase completely out of normal space, becoming invisible to any sensor the Empire possessed. More importantly, it could take other ships with it. "All squadrons," Hyrin said into her communicator. "This is Phoenix Leader. Prepare for quantum fold insertion. We're going to show the Empire what happens when they try to cage humans." Behind her, 50 of humanity's best pilots prepared their ships for something that had never been attempted before. They were going to take an entire battle fleet through quantum space and attack the Empire's home systems. Dr. So-Min Lee monitored the operation from her laboratory. The power requirements were enormous. She had to channel energy through the quantum network from dozens of human worlds just to make the jump possible. "Admiral Bayek," she said through the communication system, "we can maintain the quantum fold for exactly 47 minutes. After that, you'll need to rely on conventional engines." "Understood," Inho replied from his flagship. 47 minutes to reach the Vorthak home system and disable their main fleet. It should be enough. What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the Battle of the Impossible Fleet. One moment, the Empire's most heavily defended system was completely secure, protected by 2,000 warships and the most powerful space fortresses ever built. The next moment, 50 human ships appeared out of nowhere right in the middle of their defenses. The Vorthak High Command had gathered in their orbital palace to discuss the blockade of human space. They were confident that their strategy would finally bring the troublesome humans to heel. The meeting was interrupted when alarms began screaming throughout the system. "Impossible," Grand Admiral Vextar hissed as he stared at the tactical display. "How did they get past our blockade? How did they travel 800 light-years in minutes?" Captain Hirino's voice came through the Vorthak communication system, speaking perfect Imperial standard. "Grand Admiral, this is Captain O of the Terran Defense Force. We're here to deliver a message from humanity." "What message?" Vextar demanded. "That your blockade won't work, that hiding behind walls won't save you, and that if you want to fight humans, you're going to have to do it fairly." The battle that followed was unlike anything the Empire had ever experienced. The human ships moved through space like living things, appearing and disappearing at will. They struck at targets throughout the system, disabling defense platforms, communications arrays, and command ships with surgical precision. But they weren't just attacking military targets. Admiral Inho Beck had a larger plan. "Target the slave processing centers," he ordered. "Free everyone you can find." Throughout the Vorthak system, human strike teams appeared in places the Empire thought were completely secure. They materialized inside slave camps, prison worlds, and forced labor facilities. Wherever they found beings held against their will, they set them free. Diplomat Seung-Ho Park, Admiral Hyun-Woo's younger brother, appeared via hologram in the Vorthak High Command Center while the battle raged outside. Unlike his military brother, Seung-Ho was a master of words rather than weapons. "Leaders of the Vorthak hegemony," he said calmly, "I bring you greetings from the people of Earth. We have come here today not to conquer your worlds, but to offer you a choice," Grand Admiral Vextar snarled. "What choice, human? Surrender or die?" "No," Seung-Ho replied. "Freedom or slavery. For 10,000 years your empire has ruled through fear and force. You have conquered other species and made them serve you. You have turned the galaxy into a prison where only the strong survive." The hologram changed, showing images of the freed prisoners being loaded onto human ships, beings from dozens of different species, all of them looking up at their rescuers with wonder and hope. "We offer a different way," Seung-Ho continued. "A galaxy where all species are equal, where no one rules over others through force, where the strong protect the weak instead of enslaving them." "Impossible," Vextar said. "Without order, without control, there would be chaos." "Would there?" Seung-Ho asked. "Or would there be something the Empire has never allowed? The chance for every species to reach its full potential." While Seung-Ho spoke, the human fleet continued its work. They rescued prisoners, disabled Imperial ships, and transmitted something new throughout the system. The truth about the Empire's crimes, broadcast on every communication channel. For the first time in thousands of years, the enslaved populations of the Empire heard voices telling them that freedom was possible. They learned that somewhere in the galaxy, there were people who believed that all thinking beings deserved to be free. Captain Hyrin O's fighter squadron had a special mission. While the main fleet kept the Imperial forces busy, she led her pilots to the Empire's most secret facility, the place where they kept the technology and knowledge they had stolen from conquered civilizations. There, Hyrin said as her ship phased through the facility's shields like they weren't there, the archive of conquered worlds. Every piece of technology the Empire has ever stolen is stored in that building. Her pilots landed their ships inside the facility and began copying everything they could find. Art, literature, science, philosophy, the accumulated knowledge of hundreds of civilizations that the Empire had destroyed. Phoenix Leader, one of her pilots, reported, "We found something incredible. Medical technology that could cure diseases we've never been able to treat. Agricultural techniques that could feed billions. Energy systems that make our quantum drives look primitive. Copy it all," Hyrin ordered. "When we leave here, we're taking back everything the Empire stole." As the 47-minute limit approached, Admiral In-Ho Baek prepared to withdraw his forces. But before he left, he had one more message to deliver. "People of the Empire," his voice boomed across every world in the Vorthak system, "you have lived under tyranny for so long that you may have forgotten what freedom looks like. Today we remind you. Today we show you that the Empire can be challenged, that their ships can be defeated, that their prisoners can be freed." The human fleet began to fade from normal space, returning to Quantum Fold for the journey home. But before they disappeared completely, Admiral Baek's final words echoed across the system. "The Empire tells you that resistance is hopeless. They tell you that their rule is eternal. They lie. Change is coming to the galaxy. And when it arrives, every species will have the chance to choose their own destiny." The humans vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving behind empty prison camps, disabled Imperial fleets, and something the Empire feared more than any weapon: hope. Dr. So-Min Lee watched the fleet return through the Quantum Fold, their mission accomplished. They had struck at the heart of the Empire and shown that no Imperial system was beyond human reach. More importantly, they had planted seeds of rebellion that would grow throughout the galaxy. "Admiral," she said to In-Ho Baek as his ships returned to normal space, "we're getting reports from our intelligence network. Uprisings are beginning on 12 Imperial worlds. Species that have been enslaved for centuries are fighting back." In-Ho nodded with satisfaction. "Good. Let the Empire try to maintain their blockade now. They'll be too busy fighting fires throughout their own territory." The end came not with a battle, but with a choice. President Jiwoo Nam stood in the assembly hall on Earth, looking out at representatives from over 300 species. Some had been part of the Empire for thousands of years. Others had won their freedom only weeks ago. All of them had come to Earth to decide the future of the galaxy. It had taken 2 years for the Empire to completely collapse. After humanity's strike on the Vorthak home system, rebellions had spread like wildfire throughout Imperial space. Species that had been enslaved for millennia suddenly remembered what freedom meant. The Empire's forces found themselves fighting hundreds of different wars on thousands of different worlds. Admiral Minho Seo, hero of the final battle at Proxima Centauri, sat in the front row of the assembly. That battle had been the last gasp of Imperial power, a desperate attempt to destroy Earth with a doomsday weapon that could crack planets in half. Minho's fleet had stopped them with minutes to spare, using quantum technology to turn the weapon against the Imperial fleet itself. Now the Empire was gone, but the question remained: what would take its place? "Friends," President Nam began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall's translation systems, "we are here today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals. For the first time in galactic history, no single power rules over all others. No empire tells us how to live, what to believe, or who we must serve." She paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. There were tall, graceful beings from the crystal worlds, small, furry creatures from the forest planets, aquatic species in specially designed environment suits, rock-like entities that communicated through vibrations in the floor. "But freedom means more than just the absence of tyranny," Nam continued. "It means the responsibility to build something better. Today, we have the chance to create a galaxy where all species can thrive, where knowledge is shared freely, and where the strong protect the weak instead of enslaving them. Ambassador Hyojin Lee, Dr. Somin Lee's daughter, stepped forward. She had inherited her mother's brilliance, but where Somin worked with quantum technology, Hyojin worked with something equally complex, the art of bringing different species together in peace. The Galactic Federation we propose is not a government, Hyojin explained to the assembly. It is a partnership. Each species maintains complete control over their own worlds, their own laws, their own destiny. But when we face challenges that affect us all, exploration, trade, defense against external threats, we work together as equals. A delegate from the Seeker species raised one of his forearms. The Seekers had been among the Empire's most trusted servants until they learned what freedom could offer. Human ambassador, he said in his musical voice. This sounds wonderful in theory. But how do we prevent one species from becoming dominant? How do we stop a new empire from rising? Hyojin smiled. By making it impossible. The Federation's charter includes protections that cannot be changed by any vote, any pressure, or any force. No species can be forced to join. No member can be expelled against their will. No law can be imposed on a species that doesn't agree to it. And if someone tries to break these rules, asked a delegate from the Liberation Fleet, former imperial slaves who had fought alongside humanity. Then they face all of us together, Admiral Min Hoseo said as he stood up. The Federation Defense Force will include ships and crews from every member species. No single world will ever again face a threat alone. Dr. So-Min Lee watched the proceedings from her laboratory. But she wasn't just observing. The quantum network she had built during the war had become something much larger. A galaxy-spanning web of communication that connected every world in real time. For the first time in history, beings on opposite sides of the galaxy could talk to each other instantly. But more than that, the network carried something the Empire had never allowed: free information. Every species could share their knowledge, their art, their discoveries with everyone else. The technologies that the Empire had hoarded for themselves were now available to all. Mother, Hyojin's voice came through the quantum link. The vote is about to begin. Are you ready? Yeah, So-Min replied. The network is stable. Every species in the galaxy can participate if they choose to. What happened next had never been attempted before in galactic history. Instead of a few powerful leaders deciding the fate of everyone else, every thinking being in the galaxy was invited to vote on the Federation Charter. The voting continued for 3 days. Species that had never heard of each other debated the charter through the quantum network. Former enemies worked together to improve the language. Ancient civilizations that had hidden from the Empire for thousands of years emerged to add their voices to the discussion. On the 3rd day, the results came in. The Galactic Federation was approved by an overwhelming majority, not just of species but of individual beings. For the first time, the common people of the galaxy had been asked what kind of government they wanted, and they had chosen freedom. Captain Dongmin Choi, now promoted to general, stood at the ceremony where the Federation Charter was signed. He had led humanity's special forces through the darkest days of the war, and now he watched as former enemies shook hands and made promises of peace. General, one of his young officers asked, "What happens now? What do we do in a galaxy without war?" Dongmin smiled. "We explore, we learn. We build things instead of destroying them. There's a whole universe out there that we've barely begun to understand." The Federation's first act was to establish the Great Library, a collection of all knowledge from every member species, freely available to anyone who wanted to learn. The second act was to create the Explorer Corps, joint missions to investigate the mysteries of the galaxy and search for new life among the stars. Admiral Hyunwoo Park, now retired, stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station 5 years after the Federation's founding. Around him, ships from dozens of species docked peacefully. Trade vessels carried goods and ideas between worlds. Exploration ships prepared for journeys to distant galaxies. His granddaughter, a young girl named So Young, tugged at his sleeve. "Grandfather, are you proud of what humanity did?" Hyunwoo thought carefully before answering. "We didn't do anything alone, So Young. Every species in the Federation played a part. The Seekers gave us their wisdom. The Crystal Dancers shared their art. The Rock Speakers taught us patience. We all built this together, but we started it, didn't we? When we said no to the Empire? Yes, Yunwu admitted. We started it. But the important thing wasn't that we said no. The important thing was that we showed everyone what we were saying yes to. Just then alarms sounded throughout the station. But these weren't attack warnings. They were discovery alerts. Something had been found at the edge of the galaxy. Something that would change everything once again. What is it? So Young asked, looking worried. Dr. So-Min Lee's voice came through the station's communication system. Despite her age, she was still Earth's chief scientist and one of the Federation's most important voices. Long-range sensors have detected structures in the Andromeda Galaxy, she announced. Artificial structures. Someone built cities between the stars themselves, cities larger than solar systems. And they're sending us a message. Hyunwoo felt his heart race. After years of peace, humanity and their allies faced a new challenge. First contact with a civilization so advanced that their smallest constructions dwarfed entire star systems. What does the message say? He asked. So-Min's voice carried a note of wonder. It says, "Welcome to the community of mature civilizations. We have been waiting for your galaxy to learn wisdom. When you are ready, we will teach you wonders beyond imagination." So Young looked up at her grandfather with wide eyes. What does that mean? Yunwoo smiled and put his hand on her shoulder. It means our real adventure is just beginning. We thought we were alone in the universe. We thought our galaxy was all there was. But there's a whole community of civilizations out there. And they've been waiting for us to grow up enough to join them. President Nam's voice came through the quantum network, reaching every world in the Federation simultaneously. Citizens of the Galactic Federation, she said, today we have learned that we are not alone in the universe. There are others out there. Civilizations that have watched us grow from warring species into a community of peace. They have invited us to join something larger, something wonderful beyond our current understanding. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the hope of an entire galaxy. Our ancestors looked up at the stars and dreamed of reaching them. We reached the stars and dreamed of peace among them. Now we have peace and we can dream of something even greater. Friendship with beings whose wisdom spans millions of years, whose knowledge could help us become more than we ever imagined possible. Dr. So-Min Lee worked in her laboratory, preparing humanity's response to the message from Andromeda. The quantum network that had once been a weapon of war was now a bridge between galaxies, carrying the voices of trillions of beings toward a future none of them could fully imagine. Admiral Park, she said through the quantum link, I'm detecting more signals, not just from Andromeda, from everywhere. The entire universe is full of civilizations, and they're all saying the same thing.